Now I know what you're thinking. What took you so long to get your next League video out, Chicken Wrap? The answer, dear viewer, is that I was busy looking for the hero. It just so happens, however, that the hero was me the whole time. Poppy's passive, Iron Ambassador, allows her to throw a shield at an enemy target. Basically, she gets a ranged auto attack every once in a while. It deals bonus magic damage upon hit, and if Poppy picks up the shield after the attack, she gains a shield for 15% of her maximum health. If the shield kills her target, it will return to Poppy and shield her automatically. Poppy's Q, Hammer Shot, is a skill shot that deals damage in front of her, slowing targets it hits, and then exploding after a second, dealing the exact same amount of damage again to anyone caught within. This damage is physical, and also deals a percentage of her target's maximum health. The spell also deals reduced damage to minions. Poppy's W, Steadfast Presence, increases her armor and magic resistance by 12% passively, which doubles to 24% if she's below 40% of her maximum health. When active, Poppy gains bonus movement speed for 2.5 seconds, and a barrier forms around her that blocks opponents from dashing near her. Any champion that tries is knocked down and takes magic damage as punishment for attempting to run past something the size of a pebble. Poppy's E, Heroic Charge, allows Poppy to dash to her target, carrying them backward and dealing physical damage. If her target's hit against a wall, they'll be stunned and receive bonus damage equal to the original damage of Heroic Charge. And finally, Poppy's R, Keeper's Verdict. Do you remember this?
And use Dragon's Rage to kick it into the enemy nexus, immediately destroying it and winning the game.
Yeah! Right, used it as an April Fool's joke before, but now it's an actual ability. So, upon casting, Poppy channels up to 4 seconds, able to move freely during this time, but is slowed by 15%. Upon casting again, she hits the ground with her hammer, sending a shockwave out towards her opponents. Anyone hit by the shockwave takes physical damage and is knocked backwards towards their fountain for about the length of half of a lane at maximum range, and at minimum range, it simply knocks them upward. The reason that she always knocks opponents backwards towards their fountain is, well, can you imagine being knocked past 2 enemy turrets during lane phase? That's a little ridiculous. When targets of Poppy's ultimate are in the air, they're also invulnerable to any and all forms of damage. For masteries, my preferred setup is a 12-18 page. Surprisingly, building Poppy as a bruiser instead of building her off the strengths of her kit as a tank is currently the better option. Be sure to take masteries that improve your ability to duel targets. For runes, I go for a setup that looks like this. Fairly simple. Flat AD and scaling resistances. Nothing too fancy. We're looking to try and boost our early game CSing and dueling potential while still being able to scale into the late game with our extra resistances. With Poppy's W passive, we're essentially tacking on 1 extra resistance rune and 2 if you're below 40% of your health. For summoner spells, I tend to take Flash and Teleport on Poppy. Although Ignite has its uses, Teleport's generally a far better option because you can do a lot more around the map than if you had Ignite. And everyone knows that top laners are all about that map control. For items, I like starting with a Dorn Shield and a Health Potion, grabbing Sheen on my first bag and then a Phage later on. From there, I build into Black Cleaver, upgrading my boots to Ninja Tabby or Merc Treads depending on the game, and then build Iceborne Gauntlet. I follow that up by building Titanic Hydra and Deadman's Blade, finishing the build off by grabbing Steric's Gauge or a more defensive resistance-based item if I need it. Of course, with Poppy's W passive, you can always opt for a full tank build, and that'll do you just fine as well. However, you'll deal significantly less damage than you otherwise would. In the early game, Poppy doesn't have enough reliable damage to all-in an opponent, so you'll have to play strategically and look for opportunities where your opponent makes a mistake and then capitalize on said mistake and punish them or harass them as they attempt to CS. With Thunderlords, you should be able to put out decent harass damage with a Q and an auto attack or 2. Try to rush level 2 in lane, as Poppy's level 2 all-in can be devastating if her opponent isn't on par with her level. From there, it gets harder to knock your opponent down, so play cautious, harass when you can, and knock them around when they're out of position. I cannot stress enough how careful you have to be in lane, because if you begin to fall behind, it's a slippery slope to climb back from. That said, jungle ganks from your team can be really useful to help get you back in the game if you fall behind, or put you ahead if you're even. Poppy has a lot of really good abilities she can use to capitalize on ganks, especially if her opponent's only reliable escape comes in the form of a dash. In the mid-game, like most top laners, your primary objective should be map control and aiding your team. With Poppy's kit, she can easily prevent opposing teams from engaging upon her and her allies. When the late game rolls around, Poppy has two options: play engage tank or act as a buffer between her squishy targets and the enemy. I'd opt for the second option in most cases, as Poppy's peeling potential is one of the best in the game, and she can deal hefty damage to tanks with her percent health damage. She can block dashes, knock opponents around when they go for her team, and if anything goes south, she can always charge up her ultimate for an easy save. And now I've got some tips and tricks for you. Poppy's shield throw applies on hits and sheen procs, even from items like Titanic Hydra. You can heroically charge champions against player-made terrain such as Anivia's Wall and Trundle's Pillar. Yasuo cannot use his ultimate off Poppy's knockup, as her ultimate makes targets essentially invincible when they're in the air. Poppy's W stops jumps such as Nara's E, Jax's Q, Jace's E, Kha'Zix's E, and so forth, as well as natural slows. And finally, if Poppy uses her W when her opponent is in the middle of a dash, it'll block the dash and deal damage to her target. And that's all for this guide, ladies and gentlemen, so if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like, and I'll see you all next time. But until then, good luck and have fun.
Infinite power.